What is going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our prop and betting live stream for moving day at the Genesis. Going to get you ready for all your exposure tomorrow with a look at some of the stat averages from today, as well as a weather report, props over there on Underdog and Prize Picks, as well as anything you want to deep dive in chat. So that could be some three balls, some matchup bets over there in any books you have access to, or any props that you want my opinion on as well. So hopefully you're having a fantastic Friday out there. We've got a little bourbon in the cup this time around. It's Blanton's just like last time, so only drinking the top shelf stuff over here in the live stream. The first thing I need you to do is smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and then throw any of those questions or bets down there in the chat. But in terms of our scoring averages, got a whole lot easier in round number 2. So hopefully you guys were able to take advantage on the prop side. I unfortunately ended up having a doozy of a few players like Victor Hovland, who ended up underperforming a little bit. I see Manny down in chat must have been sweating that out as well. But for the most part, scoring averages were exactly what we called for. The pin locations, a lot more simple than what you had for round 1. That combined with no rain during the day, also lower sustained winds and wind gusts, are why it played nearly a whole 2.5 shots easier. Now, the weather out there for Saturday also looks calm. In fact, even calmer than what we had out there for today. Now, the pin locations weren't posted before we got on here. I do want to refresh it to see if we have them. We don't quite yet, but assuming that they're usually like a moving day setup, like they're out there like they typically are, it's probably going to play under par, if not even more so under par out there for tomorrow. So your birdie average went from under 2.5 per round up to 3.45. Your bogey average, which was about 4.3, 4.4 per round, went down to just a hair over 3 per round. So pretty drastic changes when it came to the golf course, which I thought of it probably be around like a 3 to maybe 3.25 average. I thought the bogey average would go down to like 3.5, maybe 3.75, but it played even easier than what I was expecting. So I already thought that we were taking quite a few good leans, but with how they actually played out, you think we got even better leans than what we mixed in. So a little unfortunate, at least for my exposure personally out there with what I played. But like I said, I hope the community had a little bit of a better go about it. In terms of your weather, I do want to look at some of the other forecasts. What you'll see on here is that the only real pocket of tee times or pocket of play where it looks like the winds are going to kick up are there in the late afternoon. So this GFS model up towards the top does have the sustained winds going from sub 5 miles an hour up to about 10 to 13 in the afternoon. So this will be something that we have to monitor up until lock. But if it's going to play windy in the afternoon, there could be an advantage to taking some unders on strokes, overs on birdies for guys that are going off early, and then maybe fading a few players with a later tee time. And if you haven't already seen it, it is going to be two sums off of hole number 1. So unlike what you had with the three sums off of holes 1 and 10, where there was only a 2-hour split in tee times, now you're talking about a 4.5-hour split of tee time. So there's only like 50 some players that ended up making the cut, which there was a cut this week, by the way, if you guys weren't already familiar with that. But yeah, because there's like only 50 or so players, it is only a 4.5-hour spread, as opposed to sometimes it'll be a 6.5-hour, 7-hour spread out there for a regular PGA Tour event, but a big enough spread where you could see a difference in the scoring. So, that's the main example of the winds kicking up, because on most of these here, they go from like 2-3 miles an hour to like 7-8 in the afternoon. So I guess the NAM model being the other real one that has it getting closer to 10 miles an hour sustained, but most of the other ones look relatively calm. So for your scoring averages, a lot of that is going to depend on the pin locations, which I know we don't have them posted on the PGA Tour site, but maybe we can squeeze them out of a site like Fanduel. So if you didn't know already, they do send over the pin locations early to a lot of these betting sites, and sometimes you can catch them before they post them there on the Twitter. So let's see if they have them in here. Hole number 1's there on that front corner. I just want to compare it to where it was today. Which let me just think. It was over there on that left side, over there at hole number 1. So yeah, this is going to be a different set of pin locations. So we'll be able to go through them just maybe a little bit differently than what we usually do. And for the sake of this, I am going to bring up the PGA Tour site. I want to be able to go through some of the contouring on these greens, and it'll also give me a chance to show you guys this Blanton's that we have over here. I know it's a little bit dark, but I'm going to keep the light off as, I'm trying to go to bed in like 3-4 hours. So I don't want to have this light blasting, bright light in front of me trying to keep me up. So cheers to anyone out there that is celebrating themselves. And let me go ahead, bring up the shot tracker, and we'll get this going over here. Again, kind of annoying that they didn't post it on the PGA Tour site, but we have it over there. Let me get that out of the way. Okay, there's hole number 1. Where'd we leave off? Do I think it will stay easy? Absolutely. What's going on, David? Yeah, I know that it missed a putt too. Unfortunate, but hey, that's how golf works. But Tia missed that 2-footer in 18 and lost his head-to-head. Yeah, but guys like Jaeger also won their 3-ball and got us profit. So, you know, we can talk about the Sanjays missing. We can talk about guys missing putts, or you could focus on some of the positive that happened as well, which there were plenty of today. So, you know, some of you out there, I know you like to tilt about your golf, tilt about your results and stuff. Just keep in mind that you're doing this for fun, and you got to look at some of the things that went well for you as well. Like whether it was 20, 30-foot putts that dropped for a birdie that shouldn't have dropped, like Sanjay chipping in for a birdie at 1 hole. So I know it's annoying that he missed the 3-foot putt, but you've also got to look at it and say like, hey, he got lucky with that chip as well. So, you know, I've been doing this long enough to kind of have that perspective, but just, I guess a little tip 101 out there for you guys. Just try and do that if you can. If you can't, you're not going to enjoy yourself doing this. I'll just tell you that. Dang, you thought this was Family Feud highlights? What's going on? You got the Scotty outright? Yeah, I didn't bet him outright, but I've got enough in DFS that it's pretty much an outright. Anyone see the 51-foot putt for Hovland? You had him under 4.5. I didn't see that, John, but that's crazy if he made one from that long. I wasn't tracking him that much when he was like 4 or 5 over par, but that is pretty damn crazy, that's for sure. Might have to fade Thompson after today's 23 putts. I'm with you on that, Dave. So I talk about it on the DFS stream a little bit. He's playing great golf. Like you look at the shots gained metrics, he's great across the board, but he's towards the top. He's done that 2 days in a row. At some point, you've got to regress down to the mean, and it kind of feels like he's due for that. Now, if he goes out there, he plays like he has for the first few rounds, you're talking about the 54-hole leader right there. So, you know, he could obviously prove us wrong, but we'll have to see how that pans out. Let's go through these pin locations. So hole 1, it's on this front little corner, as you guys can see there. So it's close to where this number 2 is. So for today, it's on this front left corner. Like I was saying before, this pin location going to be a little bit more accessible. So, you know, the general idea with moving day is that they make these pins a little bit easier. It kind of looks like that, at least at hole number 1. Let's go to hole 2 now. So hole 2 is going to be in the back right corner, which I would argue is a little bit trickier than what you had for round number 2. Round 2 is closer to the front. You know, you could spin it off the slope here and get it close. Obviously, this guy who hit it up on top of the shelf wasn't able to take advantage of that. But you saw guys, especially early in the day, hitting balls close there. So I would say that this one's a slightly more difficult pin location. You do have the side slope that you can use here to the left side, but it's also a little bit of a longer shot into that green. Hole number 3 is a front left pin location. So this one can be tricky if it's played from the back. So if they tip this one out at hole number 3, like this front left pin location could be the hardest pin that you have here all week. But what they did at the Farmers, which again, it's a different tournament, so they could change it up here, is they played it from this front left pin location with T-box, I should say. So out there in round 1, you saw that as well. They played from this front left tee. If they do that to this front left pin location, then it would be one of the easier holes that you have. So that one's really going to come down to T-box. Hole number 4 is in the back middle. So kind of like round number 1, it was also in this back little corner. Now it's going to be a little bit closer to this flat spot rather than back in the back of middle like it was for round 1, which I actually think helps the birdie rate. As you can see right where that pin location is, that's a little bit flatter than some of those other pin locations. Hole number 5 is going to be in the back right. Oh, that looks like a tough one actually. So back right corner here, tucks just over the bunker. It's a longer shot into the green. This is probably the first pin location that we can definitively say is going to play harder. Hole number 6 is the par 5, easiest hole out here on the golf course, but the pin location is going to be a little bit harder. And let me refresh this one more time to see if we have that pin sheet. And look at that, 6 minutes ago, ended up getting those pins posted. So we'll use that as it's a little bit easier to go through. But you can see here at hole number 6, it's 6 paces off the left and towards the back end of that green. It's a longer shot in. You will have enough room to run up a shot and hit it close. So I think the eagle rate will probably be about the same as what you had for today. But in terms of getting up and down, it's a little bit of a trickier prospect to get up and down for that birdie. Hole number 7, now that we have the actual pin sheet, is over here on this front side of the green complex. So over here towards that front peninsula, I would say the easiest pin location that you have there, hole number 7. Hole 8 is going to be in the back right corner. So this is a harder pin than today. You saw a lot of people today hitting it onto the slope and spinning it back close. Up here on the back shelf, you have to hit a perfect shot and control your spin to not have it spin to this bottom quadrant there, which makes it a little bit trickier in my opinion. Hole number 9 is going to be in this front corner. It's a par 5, which it isn't really reachable in 2. If you hit the fairway and you're a bomber, you might be able to get it up near the green complex, but without always as much wind, you actually might see a few more people getting it up close here. But this pin location here on the front side is a little bit easier than round number 2. In round 1, when it was way here in the back, it's going to definitely be easier than that. Hole number 10 is in the back left corner. So this is the high spot at hole number 10. They actually used a similar pin location in round number 1, which that one was a little bit tricky there. Hole number 11 is in this right side, so it's also similar to the round 1 pin location. Over here, right about where my cursor is there, that one's also pretty tough. So unless they're moving up tee boxes, like you do have 3, maybe 4 holes so far that look a little bit tricky out of the 11. Now, there's 5 or 6 that also look really easy. So it looks like a classical moving day setup. Next up, you have 12, which is over here on the left corner, which is also tough, at least compared to today, where it was on the front, where if you missed short, it was a pretty straightforward up and down. Now it's here in this back left corner and up on a shelf. So it really looks like they're trying to weed out the field. Like they've got some hard pins on this back 9, where if you don't have your best stuff, you're going to get grabbed rather quickly by the course. 13 is up on this back right corner, so very similar to the round 1 pin location, which I don't really know why they're doing this. There's so many that look like the round 1 pin sheet. But yeah, just like the first day, it's up there on that back right shelf. Hole 14 is a front side pin location. So it's over here in the low spot, which is an easier pin. So you still have these moving day pins, but you're also going to have ones where if you miss the fairway, you're going to be lucky to make a par. Like you'd have to make an all-world par if you miss the fairway in some of these harder pins. 15 is in this back right quadrant, also tough. It's on top of this little ledge like it was for round number 1. Rounds 1, it was back there. Same thing for tomorrow. So I would say that one's tougher. 16 is in the back left corner. Oh my God, we're looking at the right pin sheet, right? Yeah, I just had to make sure. I had to go back to that because 16, if you watched today, it was pretty much at like the same spot. It was a little bit further to the right, so it was more towards the center of that broad side of the green there. But yeah, look at this. You can see it right there, right? That's the round 2 pin location. Round 3, it's tucked even more back there. And today, they used the tee box over here to the left. So I mentioned that on yesterday's live stream that they might move it over there. Now, if they tip it out, this pin location is going to be impossible. But if they move up the tee box, it might not be as hard. So that one's another one where you're going to really have to look at the tee box to see how it plays. 17's over here in this front right corner. This one would be an easier pin location because it's on the lower spot of that green there. And then finally 18, the drivable, or not drivable, that'd be crazy for a par 5, but the reachable par 5, especially without a lot of wind, is down here on this low spot, which a lot of times is the Sunday pin location. So, we've got some Sunday pin locations mixed in here. Like, just to go back to it, 11's a real tough pin location. Like 10 is usually what you see on a Sunday. Like pins like 13, that's that par 5, that back right shelf. Like that's a tough one. 4 even, like over there in that back left quadrant, that's another one that in 5 too. Look at that back right over there. These are tougher pin locations. So what this kind of tells me is that they know it's going to be soft. They know that there's no wind in the forecast. And they don't want these guys to run over the golf course. That's exactly what it's telling me. And there's a good reason for that, because anytime you have a birdie fest, you see a ton of birdies out there, especially at a course that's normally extremely difficult. Sometimes it turns into a putting contest. Like you have guys that aren't even necessarily hitting it very well that are all going to have looks from like 10 to 20 feet, because even if you're missing fairways and you're not that long off the tee, everything's holding the greens. That's kind of the case after all the rain that they've gotten here. I like that they're going to make it harder out there for these players. So what I'm going to do out there with my props is I'm going to try and maybe take some fades on guys that are priced too low. Like I was looking at before, like they have some guys at 70.5, 71.5 even. So that's, 0.5 under par. You find me something that's not hitting the ball well in their ball striking, like that could be a prime fade candidate. So let me sort this by ball striking. We're going to use this list when we go through these props, but not the biggest selection actually compared to what we had out there in round number 2. Less strokes props, which is kind of weird. And the birdie lines, they look about as plentiful as what you had from round number 2, but maybe we'll get some more stroke stuff posted eventually. Where are we at? What's up with the 100K to first place showdown? It's wild. And yeah, same thing in the big 555. It's 100K up top. I'm playing pretty heavy tomorrow because I like the contest that we've got. No NFL, no NBA. DKers got a DK. Yeah, that's probably why we're getting these kind of contests. Hey, Luke, any feeling on Ludwig under 70.5? Before I went through the pins, I would have felt a little bit better about that, Barry. But now that we've seen those pins, I'm a little bit more skeptical about it. So let me take a look at the sportsbook lines. I'm not sure where he's at out there on sites like Draftkings, Barry. But if he's like plus EV, I might be able to get behind that sort of play. He's hit the ball beautifully today out there on approach and off the tee. So we'll have to see. Do I like Clark for an under 71.5 or Dunlap over 3.5 birdies? You're going to have to let me take a look at these odds because I haven't had a chance to look at them yet. What's going on? And by the way, that's Dinger Bets down there in the chat. Alex Escobar says, sent you my favorite play for the slip. Just let me know. Yeah, for sure. We'll take a look at that towards the end when it comes to that. So let's go through this though. So in terms of the board, I'm going to take a look at some of these odds where I was trying to bring this up right before he went live, but I wanted to take a look at where Caesars William Hill has everything priced. So guys like Russell Henley are at 3.5 and minus 130 over. Guys like Shane Lowry, a little bit more juice towards the over there at 3.5. You can see, right, he's minus 155. Guys like Wyndham Clark at 4.5 birdies are minus 180 towards the under, which is, I don't know. I didn't think he was going to be that much juice towards the under. I thought he might be like minus 140, minus 150 towards the under. It's kind of crazy. Like even a Scotty over here at 4.5 is only minus 125 for the over. So they go back to this board over here. Like I know they have a whole bunch of guys posted at 4 birdies. They're not that great of value. Like making 5 birdies at this golf course. I know the winds are going to be down, but with these pin locations not being as straightforward as what you might think, makes me think twice about some overs on birdies or even some potentially some unders on strokes. So let's go over here to DraftKings. Let's bring up the odds over there for strokes. So we wanted to look at Ludwig. That was one of them right at 70.5. Is I think the question. So he's wrong tab. I was wondering why it's minus 155. I was like, oof, it's not the best odds. Let's get over here to player score. So Luddy is minus 150 over. So pretty close to minus 155 out there towards his over. That would be the one thing against taking like his under. If he goes to like 71 strokes, then he might be a decent underplay. Like this is what I would say because of this plus EV value, but it's usually a stay away spot for me because a lot of times people will see this juice over there on books. They'll go out there and smack his over. And sometimes you'll get some line movement that can be beneficial. So yeah, I would wait on that 70.5 just because there's a chance if you do that you could get a better play. David says to hit the like button. You heard the guy. Go ahead and do so. And cheers to that, Dave. Appreciate you with the promotion down there in chat. Let's see what else we have for odds. So Wyndham, I know we had a question about him too. He's even money at 71.5. So, I know we had the question about him. I'd be a little bit more willing to take that sort of under just because you don't have the sports books telling us it's, value in the other direction. Interesting. Let's see what they have over here. So he is at 71.5. They do have Luddy at 70.5 strokes. So if we can marry up these plus EV odds out there with guys that aren't playing well with their approach play, like I think that's where really the magic could come in. So Denny McCarthy, for example, raised minus 140 for his over. If you take a look at his stats so far this week, again, no, he's towards the top end of the board, but he's not been doing it with his iron play. Like to this point, he's losing off the tee. He's gained about a stroke when it comes to his approach play. And if you go to round number 2, he lost a stroke off the tee, and then he lost just under a stroke when it came to the approach play. So, carrying himself around the green with the putter, he's used to doing it with the putter. He's maybe the best putter that we have in the world right now, but the approach stats and this, off the tee stuff really gets me worried there. So let me get another sip of this. My throat is definitely too dry there. Look at that. Denny is at 71.5 there. Let me see what he is over here on the prize pick side. It looks like we can get the same exact line, which is going to be mighty fine tempting. So that could be one fade that we mix in. If we wanted to make it a double fade slip, we could probably take it over here in Underdog. If we want to make it more of a mixed slip, I think over here on this side would make sense. By the way, Dinger, let me take a look at what you had for a bet. Which, by the way, I'm not going to leak the prop quite yet. Let's see. You're looking at the Scotty matchup versus Decky. I guess I just leaked it, huh? Over here. Let's deep dive it, shall we? Because, hey, if we're going to use it for a collab, right, we got to make sure we both like it here. So, yeah, Scotty versus Hideki. I mean, in terms of talent level, Scotty is clearly the better player. The one thing I'll say is that Hideki did have a good round 2. So it's not going to scare me off of saying that that's a good prop. Like, I totally agree with you there. But in round number 2, Hideki got back to doing what he does best. He gained off the tee, also gained with his approach play, but lost nearly 3 strokes putting. Round 1, he was the complete opposite. He lost out there with the ball striking, but gained in the 2 short game categories. You know, he's kind of hit or miss right now. It's kind of hard to gauge how Hideki's going to play, which could be a bad thing, could be a good thing. So it's kind of hard to say right now because, like, if he takes the 2 things that went well, right, and meshes them together, you know, it could be a super low round. But on the flip side, right, if he struggles across the board, which he struggled in all 4 categories over these 2 rounds, then it could be a really easy prop to go out there and take for an over. So yeah, if you're looking at prize picks right now, like, I'm not against that whatsoever. These other matchups, like, a lot of them are pretty close. Like Rory versus Burns, that's a close one. Burns is an absolute stud. But what I'll say about Hideki, and let me actually bring up, this is a case for the matchup, by the way, is he's not that great of a birdie maker. Like, I know this year his stats are through the roof. You know, respect where respect's due. He started really well. Wait, it's the under. Wait, you're playing Hideki. You're saying, I don't know about that. I don't know if I'd be fading Scotty out there. I'd be maybe taking the over. So I don't know if we were going to use that one for the collab, man. I don't know if I can get behind that. Any feel on outrights similar to my Scotty pick at the Players? I usually wait till Sundays to take somebody that's really roaring up, but I can tell you right off the top of my head, Dave, that I don't really have that kind of intuition. I do want to show this to Dinger, though, because this is why I was looking at Scotty. So Scotty's number 1 in the world when it comes to the birdies. I mean, everyone knows that, right? But Hideki was only number 85. So those 0.5 matchups, right, if they tie, it ends up going under, and that would hit. But it's Scotty Scheffler that you're talking about. So, yeah, I've got to say that I would lean the other way on that one. I know you're looking at that one, but that's tough for me, right? Anyone else in the world, that I'm probably looking at Hideki because the shots gained metrics look perfect on the guy. Like, he's hitting the ball well. He's due to make a lot more putts. Like, I think Hideki's going to have a real low rounds. Completely agree with you on that one. But he's running into the biggest buzzsaw in the world. I mean, like, that one's tough. But I'm not going to take that over on Scotty then, because if you're leaning on that under, then I'll definitely stay away from that, right? Yeah, I more than respect your opinion on that. So I'm staying away from it. So let's go through this a little bit more. So I was looking at this Pendrith over on birdies. Now, I was hoping the pins would be easier than what we ended up getting because, you know, I thought, okay, moving day pins, Pendrith starting way back. He has nothing to lose. Let's go out there and take his over on birdies, especially because he's the first group out. So to go over here to the PGA Tour site to show you, he's quite literally the first group out tomorrow alongside of Matthew Pavon. So not playing the best, right? We go over here to the bet the number stats. You'll see that he's lackluster pretty much across the board, gaining off the tee, though, which I guess is a nice little added bonus. Today, it was mostly the short game that held him back. And despite that, he still got the 4 birdies or better. So the pin locations do look a little bit trickier. I think that's the one thing that's kind of holding me back from this. But when we take a look at these sportsbook odds, it's why I wanted to have this up before. Like, sure, Denny McCarthy's minus 125 for the over, but Pendrith, I know we're going from tab to tab. I should have just kept all of them open so that this is a little bit more seamless. But if you go to the birdie percentage from 2024, what you're going to see here is that Pendrith is one of the top players that we have here. So you'll see that he was number 13 in the world last year. And in this kind of field is top 10 out there in this kind of field. So, you know, that's why I'd be leaning on that sort of over. Like, a lower tier player like McCarthy's already minus 125. And then to scroll up here, like Fleetwood's minus 130 for the over, right? Like guys like Shane Lowry are minus 155 for the over. Like that feels like a no-brainer to mix in. And which, speaking of, Shane Lowry wasn't at 3.5, right? Because if he was, that'd be another good one to mix in. I know we had the question about Nick Dunlop, so I want to circle back to that out there for the person down there in chat. Dunlop, to go back to this birdie or better list, is just above a Taylor Pendrith. So yeah, if you were going to look for like an over on birdies, it would be one of these two players. And considering that today the average is about 3.5 per round, that's asking them to be a little bit better than the average, which I think is reasonable for these sort of players. So let me see what they have over here, whether they have them over here on the underdog side. So yeah, he's also at 3.5 birdies. And then let's see if they have Pendrith posted too. Now, the difference between Pendrith and Nick Dunlop is Dunlop's playing better than Pendrith, so he has a later tee time, which is a double-edged sword. He's playing better, so if you take a look at the shots gained metrics, right, the Dunlop metrics are going to look a lot more sustainable, right? Gaining 2.5 strokes approach today, round one, gained off the tee on approach. But he's starting later in the day where the winds might kick up a little bit and when the greens are going to dry out. Now, it's not a massive effect, probably about a half a stroke is what I guess between the first and second half of tee times, but it's at least substantial enough to mention on a live stream like this. So over here in Underdog, if you took these three, it'd be 6x. It'd be 5x over here in Prize Picks. Not sure if this is going to be the slip that we end up taking, but those are the main three leans right now. And I know we were looking at some of those fades to start. I don't hate the idea of that either. So maybe we can make it 4 or 5 props and enter 2, maybe even 3 slips over here together, because it's not just McCarthy that I think makes sense for a fade. Like if we can find somebody else that's struggling with the ball striking, that could also be a spot to go out there and mix in. Where do we leave off? Not the under. You sent me another play? Gotcha. Let's take a look at it. And we're not going to, I guess it doesn't matter. I guess I could bring up my DMs. It's not a big deal. Fuck it. All right. So use Dunlop, not Scotty. Gotcha. And yeah, the Dunlop 3.5. I honestly think that one makes a whole lot of sense. So, I mean, we had that one in there. We also have this Pendrith prop there at 3.5. I'm going to try 1 or 2 more to go out there and take for the stream slip. But yeah, for that collab, if Dunlop's going to be your prop, I'm totally fine with that. I'm going to have to decide whether it's, one of these other two that I like that we mix in with it, or if it's something that we find over here in the next few minutes. So I'm totally cool with that. We should be taking some fades over there down under. Winds are blowing like crazy. I don't disagree with you, Jay Grimes, but there's a reason why you take overs on birdies instead of strokes, right? So hindsight's 2020, Jay Grimes. It's real easy to say that after the fact, but I didn't hear you saying anything beforehand. So I really don't care what you have to say. It's just kind of like, cool. You're just talking shit after the fact. Like, good stuff, dude. Let's go through a few more props on here. So I'm looking for fades to see if we can find anything that's plus EV. Scotty Scheffler, I'm not going to fade him at 69.5. I know it's a plus EV lean, but you're talking about Scotty Scheffler, for goodness sakes. So you have to use a little bit of logic when you're going through these props. But guys like a JT are minus 140 for the over. We already know Aubert was minus 150 for the over himself. Hideki's there at minus 155. But the one thing I'll say about him is that his stats looked awfully favorable for tomorrow. It doesn't look like we have a Sahith prop, though. So that one was at minus 140. That was something I was potentially going to look at for a fade. Tommy Fleetwood, what were his odds? I think he was juiced under at 71.5, but let's see. So yeah, he was minus 130 for the under at 71.5. Not quite sure if that's worth a fade, just because he is juiced towards the under, but it does give us some push equity there at -1. So I think the fade I feel the best about, especially because of the shots gained metrics, would be that Denny McCarthy prop. So some of these other ones like Akshay's really hitting the ball well on approach. Like some of these guys at 72 could be in play for a fade, but I do think the scoring average is probably still going to be around like half a stroke under par. Like these pin locations might be harder, but we've got to remember that the wind is also going to be lower, right? You're talking about a soft golf course, not a lot of wind. It's going to play long. You're going to have some pin locations that look tucked out there, but it's not going to play over par. Like you're not talking about a course that's going to play like a 73 scoring average. So that's why I'm a little bit hesitant to go out there and fade these guys at 72. But like just off the top of my head, guys like Seamus, they're hitting the ball well. Like he's not somebody that we could really exploit because of his shots gained metrics. They got Patrick Rogers. He's towards the top end of the board. Dunlop, we've already mentioned, right? He looked really good out there with his ball striking stats. So really the only guy you have on here for strokes that isn't hitting the ball well would be a Denny McCarthy. So it's, there are more guys over here on the birdie tab. So maybe an under on birdies could be in store, but I'd probably want to look for a guy at 4 if you're going to take an under. And yeah, a lot of your lower tier players that I'd be looking to fade look to be at 3.5 birdies as opposed to 4. By the way, this under on McCarthy birdies could be in play, but compared to the sportsbook odds, this over on strokes is better value, right? It's minus 140 as opposed to the Denny McCarthy prop, which is actually juiced towards the over out there on books. So that's why we're on the strokes fade rather than the other side of it. See, so over here on the underdog side, we didn't get a complete look at the board. By the way, it looks like Scotty may have bumped up, which I told you right off the bat, I wasn't going to fade him there at 69.5. But if this bumps up to 70 strokes, God forbid 70.5 strokes, there's a time and place where the pendulum swings too much in the other direction where you might want to start to take the under. And look at this with Ludwig, right? I mentioned that at 70.5 that he was juiced towards the over and that maybe you'd lean on that. But now that it's at 71, it becomes a little bit of a different question. So over here on the underdog side, maybe we can consider taking Aubert as one of the props that we take. And I'm going to try and give you guys one slip over here in Prize Picks, one over there on the underdog side. So yeah, Aubert, which is still at 70.5 over here in Prize Picks, is probably better taken over there on the underdog side. Where are we at? Kind of like Berger over Tom Kim for the matchup. I don't know if I agree with that, to be honest with you. I mean, Tom Kim is a better player than Daniel Berger long-term, also a higher birdie percentage player, but it is one of those 0.5 matchups, which I think makes it a little bit harder to break down because, if you take the Berger side, like you were looking at, you do get the tie, and that's huge out there on these birdie props. So I actually think it's close enough to where if I was going to bet this matchup, I would probably prefer to take the under. The side that you're saying, but I will mention the fact that Tom Kim is just frankly a better player than Daniel Berger, and I'm saying that as a huge Daniel Berger fan. He's one of my top 5 favorite players that we have in the entire world. He's up there with guys like Spieth, JT for me out there on tour. Cam Smith, one of my favorite players that we have in the entire world. I would still say that Tom Kim is the better player. So yeah, I don't love that, but I don't hate that. Does Aberg catch Scotty? I'd be okay with it, Joe. I bet Aubert this week, but we'll have to see. You like Thompson for the under 71.5. You don't know if it's something that you're missing. So, yeah, I mean, the scoring average is probably going to be about that sort of number. And unlike a McCarthy, so to go back to the shots gain metrics that we showed you before, right? McCarthy not doing as much with the ball striking. It has been that way out there for Davis Thompson. So over days 1 and 2, gaining over 2 strokes off the tee, gaining over 4 strokes out there with his approach play, which is rather impressive. So the sportsbook odds are, I guess, what we should check on. He's at 72.5. So I guess that's the argument against it. What is he over here on Underdog? Is he at 72.5? Because sometimes they just match Draftkings and move on. Say he's over here at 72. That's probably the spot to do it, right? Go over there and take him at 72 strokes. Or in terms of his birdie or better line, I want to see that now. So yeah, he's only minus 120 for the over. Yeah, if you're going to look at any sort of positive stance there, which I think is totally fine with the kind of ball striking he's putting up, I'd go that direction. Clark versus Hughes matchup. So you would lean Clark, right? Clark, higher birdie percentage player, but take a look at Mackenzie Hughes' stats from today. So Mackenzie Hughes, he's one of my showdown sleeper plays because he gained over 2 strokes on approach. So, or almost 2 strokes on approach, I should say, but lost strokes putting. And this is a golf course. When they played the US Open at Torrey Pines, the South course here, he nearly won the event, right? He was winning through 54 holes. And you don't think of him at major championships. I mean, he's short off the tee. He's not even that accurate off the tee, but he nearly won a freaking major at this golf course. And he's gaining strokes with the irons. It feels dangerous, but just like that other prop that we went through, out of principle, yeah, you would lean towards the over on somebody like Wyndham Clark. Just to go over here to these birdie or better stats, Wyndham Clark was the number 10 player on the PGA Tour. And sorry, I didn't mean to click you there, Pendrith. Mackenzie Hughes last year, sorry, it's on 2025 because we refreshed it. Mackenzie Hughes was number 77 on the PGA Tour, right? So 10 versus 77. Yeah, the clear edge versus Wyndham Clark. Thoughts on Clark and Batia for an under 71.5? So we looked at the odds on Clark before. He's about even money. So you're not getting any sort of like plus EV value. I would have said that I thought that was a good play before we started the stream. But after going through these pin locations, they look tricky enough where I kind of agree with the 50-50 odds sentiment. So, if you're going to take his under, I don't think it's the worst idea. I don't know if I'm going to get there myself, though, just for full transparency. The only reason being, he's looked good with the stats. I mean, he's gained on approach out there today. Round one, he did lose strokes on approach, but he was really hot with the putter. Yeah, I'd say it's close to a 50-50, but I would lean towards the under, the way that you're looking at it. And then the other one was Akshay Bhatia. So Akshay Bhatia, he's been really good with the irons both days. So I always spell Akshay's name wrong, just a bad habit of mine. But round two, he gained over 3 strokes on approach. Round one, he gained over 1 stroke out there on approach. And round one was also pretty stout off the tee. Akshay is probably the one I'd prefer out of those two, but I don't think we have odds to compare to. In fact, let me see if we have them on Draftkings. Let's see. So yeah, no odds posted over there. We could check on Fanduel. Sometimes they'll surprise us with an extra player or two, which would be kind of nice to look at Akshay Bhatia just to see what kind of odds we have to compare with, but it doesn't look like they have those posted right now. Unfortunate. Can I deep dive some Sam Stevens? I absolutely can. These are my favorite questions, by the way. Deep dives on players. So Iron Play has been great, by the way. If you just want to know the Spark Notes version, he gains 3 strokes on approach round one. Today, he gains nearly 2 strokes on approach. I mean, it looks like an absolute rock star at this point. So he's going to be a little chalky because he is starting at T14. He does have a later tee time as well because of that. It's not the end of the world, though. Like if you're playing on Showdown, you can mix in that sort of player. He's just he's not going to get you that different because I think a good amount of people are going to play him with those stats. Final group is Scotty. You'll fade Thompson strokes. Yeah, I feel you on that. That's why I thought that it was kind of like a stay away spot, why I'm not going to play it myself. The shots gained metrics look great, but I'm fading him in Showdown for that same reason. The mental factor comes in, and then regression comes in as well. When you've played stellar golf for 2 days in a row, some people think that makes you more likely to do it again, but that's not necessarily true. Regressing back to your mean, it can be a bitch at times, and especially when you're a young player leading in front of guys like Scotty Scheffler. You have other elite tier players up there as well. I mean, Rory McIlroy, right? Starting up there in the top 5. That puts a lot of pressure on you mentally. So I'm there with you on that. Yes, thank you. You're going to play Davis on Underdog. You were back and forth with him or O'Bear. Cool. Makes sense. And yeah, Davis Thompson, he's a stud, that's for sure. I mean, like if he went out there and he played well, it wouldn't surprise me. But that mental factor is also why I think it's a little bit more dicey as well. So do with that what you'd wish. I'm probably not going to bet any of his props out there for tomorrow, but yeah, I'm fading in DFS. That's the way I'm going about it. So we've got these 3 props over here. So we're going to take a 2-man over here on the prize pick side. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this Denny McCarthy over on strokes. And then we're going to take this over on birdies for Taylor Pendrith. So what we're doing here, by the way, is protecting ourselves from these harder pin locations. So the harder pin locations are going to lead to a good amount of bogeys. So bogey average today was only about 3 per round. I think that's going to go up to at least 3.5 per round, which I don't think a lot of people would expect with the lower wins, but I think you're going to see that because of the harder pin locations. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to take the over on Pendrith because it doesn't matter how many bogeys he makes, right? We're worried about that birdie production. And starting from way far back, by the way, if you didn't know, Taylor Pendrith hardly made the cut down here at T48. I mean, if he's even going to get back to even par, which would at this point, even par be like a T20 finish, he's got to make at least 4 birdies to get to that kind of mark. So, he has nothing to lose at this point. Everyone gets paid from this point out. So a Pendrith, he has only incentive to go out there and try and move up that leaderboard. So I would expect that sort of player to go out there and take advantage, which is why we're going to take those two together. So that's a 3x payout over there on the prize pick side. And then we're going to use some of the other props that we've looked at here for something over there in Underdog. So on Underdog, they're starting to bump this board, which I think could lead to some significant value opening up. Like we saw that one over there with Scotty at 69.5. Like he'd have to shoot -3 to go under that. Sure, that's a tough round, but that's 3 shots gained to the field, right? If you have an even par scoring average, that's well within his range of outcomes. So if you're giving me, that equity and all the push equity there at 70 as a refund, that's where I would want to be taking that sort of play. So Aubert's the same way. Like, I know he's juiced towards the over, but you're giving me that 40, maybe 45% equity to go under, plus the push equity of him shooting -1. So that's why we had him in the shopping cart over here. Dunlop, right? We may end up taking that as the collaboration play over there with Dinger Bets. So we're probably going to stay away from that one here in the live stream, but we'll find something to pair him up with. You think Rory can catch Scotty tomorrow, especially if he can't find his driver? I agree with that. That's what I'll say about Scotty, man. The shots gain metrics are fragile, to say the least. You debated Aubert because you knew he has a bad history from round 3. So yeah, if he has that bad history, that's a data point against him. It's I don't know that off the top of my head, but hey, I know a lot of shit off the top of my head, so I definitely feel you on knowing those obscure golf facts. It's there's a whole encyclopedia on top of my mind. Thoughts on Aubert's strokes for the under? So yeah, we have the 71 in here. Just make sure you're doing it on the right site. So over here on Prize Picks, he's at 70.5. So on a sit like Underdog, where you're getting it 0.5 higher, that's where you want to be taking that sort of lean. So just make sure you're doing it on the right site. Aubert is a good pick too, tailor-made for this course, but you need to be you need the crystal ball to know when to play him. Yeah, he's been a little inconsistent, right? That's the one gripe that you have with Aubert, but perfectly fit for the golf course, right? Long and straight off the tee, has the ball speed to extract himself from that rough. I tend to agree with you on pretty much everything you said there, especially the part about him being like hard to predict. You're spot on right there. So guys like Tommy Fleetwood, right? He was at 71.5. He was juiced a little bit under. But guys like Hideki, like, look at this, right? They bumped up to 71. Same thing with Patrick Cantlay, which I didn't see Patrick Cantlay's odds on here, but let's circle back to that one. So Patrick Cantlay, he was, 71.5 and juiced under. But guys like Hideki, who are down at 70.5, like maybe he's another guy to take for the under with all that push equity there at 71. Like there could be some more line movement over here at Underdog too. So I'm almost tempted to wait and see what they end up doing with the board. They're like Davis Thompson, he's 0.5 higher over here on this site. If they continue to move these lines out there in that kind of direction, there could really be a lot that opens up over here. So kind of going through these right now, it looks like most of the lines are the same as Prize Picks. Like either are a few that are off by just a few. Let me see what they have Keegan at. Does he have a line posted? So yeah, he's about even money, it looks like, over there at 71.5. I was hoping he'd be juiced under, or maybe, -140, -150 over. But yeah, it looks like a lot of your heavily juiced players over here on the Underdog side have been bumped by that 0.5 already. So there's not a lot of those still hanging on the board, but it does open up value on the other side of things. So, if these bump by 0.5 more, that's when I'm going to hop on personally, right? So like if an Aubert goes to 71.5, like that's a no-brainer under, in my opinion. Same thing on somebody like a Hideki Matsuyama here. And considering that a lot of this steam on players, or a lot of the reason why a lot of this stuff bumps is because of touts out there putting out picks. If you have enough slapdicks out there tailing plays after they bump, which by the way is something that in my Patreon, everything that I do for my Discord, I tell people not to play stuff after it bumps. Like that's usually my recommendation on like 99% of plays I go out there and put out. But some slapdick touts out there are like, yeah, sure, still go out there and take it after the 0.5 bumps. Golf isn't a sport you go out there and do it with. So, just like I said, like I think it's a decent lean there at 71. It becomes a great lean at 71.5. Like there's just the finest of margins over here for golf bets, which is why my eyes are going to be peeled over here on this Underdog board. I'm not 100% sure we're going to go out there and enter anything quite yet, just because, they feel like really good leans. I almost want to take these two right now, just because like shooting -1, that's what, 0.8 strokes better than the scoring average today, right? I know it's tougher pins, but there's no wind out there tomorrow. Let's say it's a half a stroke under par scoring average. Like that's kind of where my mind is right now. That's what I think it's going to play like. If it's a half a stroke under par scoring average, half a stroke to the field gained is a push out there for both of these players. That is well below each player's baseline. Like Aubert's gaining on average about a stroke and a half per round. Hideki's closer to about a stroke gained per round over there with his shots gained. It's tempting to go out there and mix in, that's for sure. Now, Hideki has an earlier tee time, so I think it's a positive there with the 11:25. Aubert doesn't have the early tee time, but he does have the impeccable shots gained record, right? Where he's gained nearly 4 strokes when it came to his off the tee and approach today. This will be the underdog slip. So we're going to take this over here on the underdog side. I was, debating on waiting to see if it would bump even more, but at 71, I just can't see it bumping to 71.5. The plus EV guys are probably going to hop off after the 0.5 bump. And I think enough people are going to recognize the value here that you start seeing people smack the under. And you can say the same thing about a Cantlay, Fleetwood that I pointed out, that sort of price. Let me look at Lowry's odds real quick. Minus 130 for the under. So like a Lowry might not be the worst play either. There's a decent amount of value on these boards, I would say. Like, I think it's going to play tough, but you give me like an elite tier player at 71.5. Like, I don't have an issue taking under on strokes. Like, I know we're fading guys with Denny, but they're a mid to lower tier player in this sort of field. Guys like Obear, Hideki, they're clearly top 10 options out there in a signature event like this. I think you got to pick your spots. Like, there are some fades you could take out there with those pin locations, but as you can see here, there's also some unders that make sense as well. Where are we at? Is there somebody that can make a shocking run on the weekend because their metrics are just that good? So going back to the round 1 and 2 stats, there were a couple, I guess, that were kind of catching my eye. So let's sort this by the shots gained ball striking. So shocking run kind of implies starting a little bit further back. Like Tom Kim is that sort of player. Like he's gained over 4 strokes of the ball striking, just cannot make anything out there with the putter. Steven Yeager, same thing, gaining about 4 strokes ball striking, losing about 4 strokes over there with the putter. It's those sort of players. Like even a Fitzy is quietly really playing well this week. And then maybe a Sam Stevens as well, right? He's gained about 5 strokes over there as an approach play. Those sort of players. Now, Stevens is T14, so I don't know if it would be that shocking, but a player like a Tom Kim at he's +1. I mean, T24 at this stage of the week. I don't know if they can quite make a run to go out there and win this thing, but make a run to go out there in top 5 for sure, because the top 5 is like -3, -4 right now. So those would be the kind of players I'd be eyeing up for that sort of thing. In terms of matchup bets, which today went okay, especially with the Jaeger one, I got +240, by the way, over there on Hard Rock Bet, which is pretty sweet. We're looking at these round 2 ball striking poppers. So we're going to use the same kind of process that we did for the day before. Tom Kim was the main one that I was looking at before we got on stream. Hideki, right? There's a reason why we're looking at his under on strokes. But let me look at this Tom Kim one, because this could be the 3 ball that we end up playing here together. Doesn't look like they have, well, I guess we're on the wrong tab. Let's go over here to the matchup side. Matchups, and it'll be 2 balls over here. Okay, Tom Kim is -125 out there versus a Siwoo Kim. I guess let's take a look at how Siwoo got it done today. So Siwoo Kim lost on approach, but gained off the tee and around the green. If we're comparing the 2 stat profiles, I'd much rather have, Tom Kim as opposed to the Siwoo Kim, mostly because of the approach play being so much better for Tom. But the -125 odds, I don't want to say it feels fair, but it's pretty damn close to it. Let me see what he is over here on this site, Fanduel. -110. Oh, well, that's against Tony Finau, so that one's gonna be a little bit different. Do they not have 2 balls on here? Is that not something they do? I know with the 3 balls, they'll post them. Let's see. Does he have the other matchup? No, it's literally only versus a Tony Finau. Well, I guess let's look at Tony Finau, right? If that's the one that we have available over there on FanDuel. So Tony, on the other hand, gained 2.7 strokes around the green. It might actually be a better play to go out there and take him versus Tony, because Tony really luck sacked it when it came to his around the green play. Now, Tony has really good course history around here long term, so I think that kind of plays into it a little bit. I don't know. Let's throw them both in the shopping cart for now. Let's see if we can find anything better out there on the board. So let's go back to the round 2 stats. Let's go up to the top end of the ball striking list. Hideki Matsuyama, I guess we could do our due diligence there. See what they have posted for him. So he's -185 versus Ricky. I mean, obviously I agree with him being favored, but -185 odds is pretty trash. Maybe we can go after the other market here on FanDuel. So yeah, he's up against, so that's a 72 hole. Wait, was that the other matchup we're looking at too? No, we don't want the 72 hole matchup. We want a round matchup. Do they really not have those posted? Okay, I guess not. So let's see if they have the other matchups on here. Do they not? God, this is so annoying. When they have the two sums, I guess they take a lot longer to post all those alternate matchup lines. Whereas Fanduel only has alternate matchup lines posted, and then Draftkings only has the regular ones posted. It's a kind of a frustrating experience trying to find stuff to bet, but such is the case when you're trying to do this so close to lock. Let's find a few other people on here. So Pavon, he looked really good with the ball striking today, gained about 2.4 strokes there. He's going against Pendrith right off the bat, though, so I'm not sure if I really want to bet against Pendrith. Pendrith, really good course history guy. Who else do we have to choose from, though? And Adam Scott played well. Jake Knapp, he really fits this kind of golf course, too. So let's see what we have on the Napster. That could be about that. So Knapp is plus 105 versus Rye. Aaron Rye, I mean, he's a grinder and whatnot, but he doesn't really fit this long style golf course well. He played well today, did gain out there with the ball striking. Round one was a little bit shakier. This might be the prop that we end up taking because Jake Knapp at plus 105, I would argue with the shots gained metrics that he should be favored. Now, I'm not sure we even have anything to look at over here on the FanDuel side. I guess we'll check. Yeah, nothing posted in terms of a matchup. But if any other book posts them at like plus 110, maybe close to plus 120, that's probably where I'm buying on the Jake Knapp. So until we can see the full market and I can see what actual value is available, I'm not going to bet this number out there on Jake Knapp. But it looks like, the first market indicators that they have Aaron Rye as the favorite. I don't necessarily agree with that. Knapp, I know maybe a lower tier player long term, but the course fit tips the scale in his direction, in my opinion, right? He's got the distance to take on this kind of golf course. With the lack of wind, I think that helps Jake Knapp as well. Aaron Rye is a grinder, right? You like him when conditions get tough. Jake Knapp can make a whole bunch of birdies, right? He won over there at the Mexico Open, another long, demanding course off the tee. Yeah, give me like plus 115, plus 120 on a Jake Knapp, and I'm taking that one for sure. Let's see. Can we make a 2-3 leg for Prize Picks? I already went over 2 or 3 props that you could take, Andrew. So feel free to go ahead and mix those ones in. If you're just joining us, just go back like 10, maybe 15 minutes, and you can find all these props that we went through. So I think it was 4 total that we went through? It was 5 that we went through brainstorming. Pick your favorite 3 out of those, and you can do it. But we entered a couple 2-man slips, so you might just want to tail those that we went out there and entered. But yeah, about 10 minutes ago out there for those 2. But yeah, that's all we've got out here for this live stream, guys. It's getting a little bit late over here. I've got to hit the sack here soon, get out there to sleep and wake up early tomorrow. But best of luck with all of your exposure out there for moving day. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already as well. And also subscribe so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. That'll, of course, include our live stream out there for round number 4 and all the events throughout the rest of the season, whether it's with your prop slips or over there with your outright bets or matchups. I hope you have all the run good out there for Sunday, and I'll see you guys for our live stream tomorrow night.